Hey guys, Ricky here, and I'm gonna be throwing some upshots with the Slammer, talking to you how to make your upshot game better. But first, I just want to talk about my first thoughts on the Slammer after being able to throw it for about a month. You can throw it almost one speed and know exactly the distance it's gonna go, and it's not super glidey. And I've noticed that my distance control is a lot better, and I'm getting a lot of upshots close with this thing. So now we're here at the country club. I got about 150 to 200 foot, somewhere in that range, just like I was talking about. That's the distance I'm really feeling comfortable with the Slammer. We got a pretty good headwind, which is good because these things can handle some headwind, and these things almost fly better in the wind. And so that's why I'm gonna reach for a disc like the Slammer that's so consistent, and I know what it's gonna do every single time. It's gonna have that nice overstable finish. And so I'm gonna work you through the different things that go through my head and how to get my shot close every time. So the first thing that I always talk about is setup. So I have a Slammer in my hand, so it's obviously gonna be an overstable disc, so I'm gonna need to aim right. So we have a headwind, the disc is gonna naturally go left, so it's just a matter of how much is that headwind gonna hold it straight versus letting it fade left. So I'm gonna line my feet up. So there's a tree right at the basket, so I'm almost aiming at that tree with my feet. So then all my motions are gonna go towards that tree. So feet line up my shoulders, and shoulders are gonna line up my arm. So now everything is gonna be almost at that tree, because I'm throwing a Slammer, obviously, so it's gonna wanna fade left. So my ideal landing zone is gonna be like 10, 15 feet left of the basket, and then just have a nice high percentage putt to get up and down. Because obviously I wanna avoid that tree. So I'm gonna start my disc at that tree and let it work its way off, because that's naturally what a Slammer wants to do, is hyzer. And luckily these don't glide or skip too much, so it should just settle hopefully somewhere right around bullseye's edge. So that one skipped a little bit. As you saw, I almost made it on accident. The headwind held it straight, and it kind of skipped a little bit at the end. It's inside the circle, but I want to get closer. So this time, the wind carried it a little bit more left than I wanted. I'm gonna try to almost just miss the edge of that tree. So I'm gonna start it almost at that green box, because that one kind of picked up and hyzer a little bit more. So start at the green box, hyzer, and I should be a lot closer than that first one. That's way better. So that was a better line. Now this time I'm gonna kind of come in with a little bit of ante and kind of just try to see how it flies on a little bit of ante. So now what I'm gonna do is that, if you notice, I changed my feet because I changed the angle of where I'm gonna release it. So if I release with ante to the right, it's gonna be right of the basket. So I naturally, automatically, I change my feet to this because I'm gonna kind of try to throw straighter at it instead of to the right. So shoulders are lined up straight, my angle is gonna be straight, so I'm gonna kind of try to throw a flex. And now instead of bending down like this to force the hyzer, I'm gonna just stand up straight and maybe even a little bit like my shoulders like this, so I can naturally get that ante on it. So let's try one more. Solid. So I went just over the basket. So I'm gonna try one more ante. I'm gonna actually try to ante the Slammer, which is hard to do because it's so overstable, but if you put enough angle on it, you can do whatever you want. So that shot is exactly why I love the Slammer. If you notice, I flexed it. It looked like it was gliding past the basket. And if we get up there, it's probably 10 feet away, 10 feet long. Whereas a normal disc, an upshot disc, if you throw that same shot, it's gonna glide and hold that angle and make you go 20 or 30 feet long. So the percentages of making a 30-foot wind putt versus a 10-foot wind putt are so much better, obviously, with that 10-footer than the 30-footer. So higher percentage upshots means higher percentage putts when you get up to the green, and lower scores. So now let's try some sidearms. I showed you my backhand routine. It's almost all similar with the sidearm as far as my alignment with my feet, my shoulders, everything, except I'm just using a little bit more wrist motion to get the spin on the disc. And this shot is a little bit easier for the sidearm because there's really no tree on the left-hand side like a backhand. There's a tree on the right-hand side to kind of block the hyzer, made it a little more challenging. So I'm gonna go with the Slammer. The number one thing for me that's gives me confidence for upshots when I'm throwing a Slammer is I don't really have to worry about going that far past. When you're this, whatever, I'm like probably 150 to 160 feet away, I can throw it pretty firm. And and just like most people, I think when you're throwing firm and you don't have to feel like you're softening it, you have more control, at least for me. So I feel like I can throw it pretty hard. No, I'm not gonna go deep, and just the one variable is just hit the line, and the distance is gonna be right because this is such a good distance control disc. So Let's throw a couple sidearms here. I'm gonna aim a little left, got my feet lined up a little bit left. So now all I'm gonna think about is throwing my arm and my wrist a little bit to the left. I'm not throwing it at the basket, because if I release and do everything at the basket, by the time it gets to the basket, the slammers like to hyzer, obviously, because that's the natural flight. So play the natural flight, which is 20 feet left, and have a nice 20-foot hyzer towards the basket. So I'm gonna aim about circle's edge left, and then by the time it gets to the basket, it's gonna be inside the bullseye. Low, skip, bullseye. If you notice, there was no action on the ground. It just did a little skip right to the basket. It didn't have to worry about it going long. So this one, I'm gonna throw a little higher and just kind of float it and maybe try to make it. I'm gonna do a little run and see how far, how close I can get it, but still also give it a run. Ah, that one was too stable. Oh, got a nice bounce, see? Even if you throw it bad, it's good. This one, I'm gonna try to throw another run. Let's try another, that one kind of fell out of my hand a little bit early. So I'm gonna try to flex it. And that's the other thing, is you can even flex it to the left with a sidearm and know that it's gonna fade back at the end. So line up the feet, practice my arm swing. That's kind of what's going through my head when I'm throwing a shot like this. Arm, wrist, everything's at the point at that left-hand side. That was just too high. I hit the line, I just threw it too high. So I'm gonna throw a couple more. Those two that I threw bad shots on, I'll be honest, it happens to everybody, is I was between like, hey, I wanna run it. Or like the first one, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna lay up and try to throw it inside the bullseye. And the second one, I try to get cute and like try to run it. And just like a putt, if you half run it, half don't, they almost never work out. So you gotta commit to a shot. I'm gonna commit to a shot. I'm gonna throw 2 layups, try to just land them inside the bullseye, and then I'm gonna run one. And I'll show you the difference between the two. It's really just a height thing. But the first one's just gonna be a layup. Just wanna get up and down, save some strokes. Nice and low, skip a little bit, hit the board. So now I'm gonna do one more of those, just to show you how consistent I can be. And like I said, it's all about the line hitting this, like probably like 25, 30 feet left, and letting it naturally go back to the right. Whether it hits the ground and skips, or it just flies there, it's going to go right. So that's something that you know when you throw a slammer, what's gonna happen. So you might as well play the natural flight of it. Boom, bullseye hit. Now this time I'm gonna put a little more flex, throw the same shot, and just try to make it. I'm trying to make it. I don't wanna go too far past, so I'm gonna try to do a little floaty run. So naturally what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw a little more direct at the basket and kind of put a little more ante and try to land a little flatter. Whoa, that was really good. Almost made it, but you saw how I kind of like was a little nose up. And how you can throw a nose up sidearm is if your arm is above your elbow. That's something that forces you to throw nose up. Same with the backhand. If your arm is above your elbow, your wrist is above your elbow, I should say, not your arm, then you're naturally gonna want to have a little bit of a nose up, and that's how you can kind of have the soft runs. And same with the sidearm. If my elbow, or if my wrist is above my elbow, that's what I'm thinking. Wrist above my elbow and snap, because it's naturally gonna make you want to throw higher, and it's gonna make you want to throw like an arcing up motion, and that's gonna make the disc go up and kind of elevate her down. So that's how I can throw that run it shot, try to make it, and only go 15, 20 feet long instead of throwing a blast right at the basket. And if you miss, you're automatically not getting up and down because it's 40, 50 feet on a raised basket, you know? So that's kind of the stuff that goes through my head. And how can I control the speed? How can I control the release point to determine what shot I want to do? And then I'm kind of just doing, that's, you know, obviously you see a lot of players doing practice routines. That's what you're doing, because I'm obviously have a different shot if I want to run it versus if I want to just skip it up into the ground and right next to the basket, and especially with the wind. You know, 20, 30 footers are different with no wind than when there's wind like this. So it's all situationally, and you want to have, it's all, you know, every shot's different for each situation. And, you know, you want to take the high percentage play in the wind. You're not going to be wanting to slam in 20, 30 foot headwind putts, because the wind can do unpredictable stuff, and you want to have drop-in pars or drop-in birdies instead of having to putt. All right, guys, now that I walked you through what goes through my head for upshots, hopefully you can grab some slammers, improve your game, and throw some close upshots.